The ministry of the word today is from Mark chapter 5, verses 25 to 34. And you may have noticed the picture on the front of the bulletin today, which really is a beautiful, I think, depiction of exactly this story. Now there was a woman who had been suffering from hemorrhages for 12 years. She had endured much under many physicians and had spent all that she had. And she was no better, but rather grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. For she said, "If I but touch his clothes, I will be made well." Immediately her hemorrhage stopped, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her disease. Immediately aware that power had gone forth from him, Jesus turned about in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you. How can you say, 'Who touched me?'" He looked all around to see who had done it. But the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came in fear and trembling, fell down before him, and told him the whole truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease."
Thank you, Frank. So you know how each week during the welcome, I mentioned that stuff about how our congregational and UCC tradition, we have a long-standing tradition of democratic governance and the full equality of all members and friends of the spiritual community to participate in its life and work. I say that every week. Well, get ready to do some participating. Question: what is one of your rules to live by? What is one of your rules to live by? I'm going to give you exactly 20 seconds to think about it, and then I'm going to ask you to offer some of those. Ready? Go. Oh, well, not yet. 20 seconds aren't up. Time's up. All right. Rules to live by. What is one of your rules to live by? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Be kind. Be kind. Where was the voice I heard earlier? Be respectful of others. Common courtesy. Integrity. Any others? Rules to live by. Joanne? Loving to all. Give back to the community. Give back to the community. Honesty. Follow the rules. Good. You're good at this participation thing, right? Gratitude for every day. Any others? Joan? Forgiveness. Richard? Trust your intuition.
Be kind and caring to the world you made for us.
Kind and caring to the world you God made for you. Who's you? God. Thank you. I assumed that, but I wanted to make sure. Any others?
Find win-win solutions.
Find win-win solutions. Any others? Think before you speak. Is that one directed this way? Yeah. Think before you hit enter or send, right? Sympathy and empathy. Curiosity. Good. All right, that's great. Thank you so much for those. Several of those are actually on, my general list of rules to live by, and the others, I think I need to consider adding them. Because you can always add new rules to live by. In fact, I just added one not too long ago. Here it is. Never, never, ever, ever try to watch a movie with a child unless it is in a theater. Now, by child, Leah, you're what, 11? 10. Oh, you're way past what I'm talking about. I'm talking about much younger. I'm sure that's... Because if you do, you're never, ever, ever going to see the entire movie, start to finish, in one sitting. See, when Cindy and I were away earlier this month, we spent most of the time at a house on Lake Champlain in northern New York with our sister-in-law, Barbara, who I talked about last Sunday, and her daughter, our niece, Michelle, her husband, Xavier, and their two daughters, our two grandnieces, Marianne and Isabel, ages 7 and 4. The entire time that we were with them, they would put on movie after movie, start the movie, stop the movie, go off and do something else. A couple hours later, come back, start the movie, stop the movie, go off and do something else, start the movie, stop the movie, on and on and on, for day after day after day, which meant that Cindy and I never got to see a single movie from start to finish in one sitting, or see it in the appropriate order. And that was particularly true of one movie that they insisted on putting on, stopping, starting, stopping, started, time and time again. We Bought a Zoo is a 2011 film that is loosely based on the memoir of the same name by a guy named Benjamin Mee. Now, apparently, loosely based is a phrase which comes from the Latin word for sort of. Because while in the memoir, Benjamin Mee is a British journalist who, after the death of his father, and because of his mother's need to move out of their house, decides deliberately, after careful deliberation, to buy and restore zoo, the Dortmore Zoological Park in England. In the film, Benjamin Mee, played by Matt Damon, is an American journalist who, after the passing of his wife, in order to give himself and their teenage son Dylan and 7-year-old daughter Rosie a fresh start, impulsively decides to buy and restore a zoo in California. Okay? So more spoiler alerts are on the way. So Rosie is enamored of living at the zoo. Dylan, not so much. Dylan, already angry about being forced to leave his home and his school and his friends, becomes increasingly sullen and withdrawn. Consistently at odds with Benjamin. And eventually messing up a budding relationship with Lily, a girl his age who is a volunteer at the zoo. Well, near the end of the film, Dylan and Benjamin have a moment where they both finally let down their guards. They finally have a sincere, genuine, heartfelt conversation. And in the course of that conversation, Dylan tells his dad about what happened with Lily. And in response, Benjamin says to his son, you know, sometimes all it takes is 20 seconds of insane courage. Literally, just 20 seconds of insane bravery. And I promise you, something great will come of it. Dylan will find that 20 seconds of insane courage. And it will lead to the restoration of his friendship with Lily. It will help to begin the process of bringing he and Benjamin closer together. And it will help lead him to realize that, hey, life at the zoo ain't so bad after all. Up to that point in the movie, though, the implication is that those 20 seconds of insane courage that Benjamin tells his son about are a reflection of, they are rooted in Benjamin's decision to buy and restore the zoo. But in the very last scene of the film, we find out that's not the case. Instead, it is rooted in the time that Benjamin met his late wife, Catherine. In the final scene of the film, Benjamin takes Dylan and Rosie to the cafe where he first met her. And he explains to them how on that day, he just happened to be walking down the sidewalk when he glanced through the window of the cafe and saw Catherine there sitting at a table. And then he explains to the kids that 20 seconds of insane courage, I stopped, I walked in the cafe, I walked up to Catherine's table, and I said, why would an amazing woman like you even talk to someone like me? Those 20 seconds of insane courage would transform Benjamin's life. Just as long before, 20 seconds of insane courage would transform hers. It had been 12 long years. 12 long years during which she had lost nearly everything. Her physical, her emotional, her economic, her social, her religious, and her spiritual health. All due to her condition. 12 years of what the writer of Mark's gospel tells us is hemorrhaging of some kind. 12 years later, her money is gone, spent on possible cures that didn't take. Due to her condition, she is consistently in a state of what's referred to in ancient Jewish religious law as being ritually impure, unclean, which means that she is unable to participate in the rituals of her faith, and which also means that considering in that time and place, social and religious life were so deeply intertwined, and add in the fact that in that time and place, disease and illness were often considered to be signs of either demonic possession or God's disfavor. All of it combined has also left her isolated, a social and spiritual outcast. But she has heard. She has heard about a wandering rabbi named Jesus who might be able to help her. And so she disappears into a crowd that is gathered around Jesus in order to hear him one day. And she decides, well, even if I just touch his clothes, that will make a difference. But face to face? No way. That would be insane. Way too risky. Way too much risk of having someone in the crowd recognize her, someone who knows about her condition. Too much risk of criticism, shaming, rejection. Maybe, who knows, even rejection from Jesus himself if she tries to approach him face to face. No way. That would be insane. Immediately, she feels it. Immediately after touching his cloak, as she starts to walk away, she feels it. The writer of Mark's gospel tells us that she felt in her body that she was healed. She felt in her body that she was healed. And as she walks away, she picks up bits and pieces of a conversation that Jesus is having with his closest followers. Jesus senses that something has happened, that some divine power is at play here. He asks the disciples, who touched me? The disciples are incredulous. What, are you kidding us? Seriously, Jesus? Who touched you? Look around. It's like a zoo here. The woman hears all this and stops. She stops and decides to turn around and go back. Go back to Jesus, and this time face to face. Why? That's insane. Why would she do that? Why would she take that kind of risk after she's already felt that healing in her body? Because she needs more than that. Mark says she felt it in her body, but she needs a lot more to be made whole. She still needs to be emotionally and socially and religiously and spiritually restored. And so she goes back. And in fear and trembling, goes to her knees, and as Mark says, tells Jesus the whole truth. The whole truth about those 12 long years the whole truth about the full healing and restoration that she needs. I don't imagine the conversation took all that long. I mean, I'm sure Jesus was smart enough to pick up on the details without her having to tell him. I'm guessing the conversation probably took no more than, 20 seconds. 20 seconds of insane courage on her part. Your faith has made you well, he tells her. Go in peace. In the Greek that the Gospels are written in, faith has a larger meaning than necessarily what we just think of it as. Yes, we understand it as trust, but in the Greek of the Gospels, it means courageous trust. Courage. Made you well. That phrase in the Gospels does not mean just physical healing. It means being saved or transformed. And peace, in the language of the Gospels, it means more than just the absence of conflict. It means wholeness. What Jesus says to her in response to her 20 seconds of insane courage is that your courageous trust has transformed you. And so go, knowing that you are now whole. Because that's what 20 seconds of courageous trust can do with God's help. So what is it? What is it, my friends? What is it that you need healed right now? That you need transformed? That you need made whole? Is it a strained or broken relationship? Is it the loss of someone or something that you love? Is it the struggle to find meaning or even hope in these difficult times? What is it? Whatever it is, take the risk. Take those 20 seconds of insane courage. Pick up the phone, write the note, write the email. Lay it all, lay the whole truth of your struggle and suffering out there to someone that you trust or to God. Walk through the door of some place that might need volunteers to help serve God's people. Take the risk. Of course, that's a lot easier said than done, isn't it? Those 20 seconds of insane courage can be awfully hard to come by. They can be awfully hard to find, and probably for the same reasons that 20 seconds of courage was hard for that woman to find. Fear. Fear of criticism or shame or rejection. Fear of failure. Or fear of success. Psychological and sociological research suggests to us that we may very well be just as, if not more, afraid of success than we are of failure. afraid of what we could be, afraid of being transformed for the better. Because, see, it's easier. It can be easier, more comfortable to just stay where we are and live with the struggles and the difficulties that brings, because it's what we know. Maybe that 20 seconds of insane courage is hard to find because we've convinced ourselves that it won't make a difference. But as the woman learns, Jesus and the God he embodies can do an awful lot with those 20 seconds of insane courage. Or maybe those 20 seconds are hard to find because we believe, we convince ourselves in the same sense that the woman did before she decided to go. Why? Why would someone like Jesus and the God he embodies even talk to someone like me? Or why would that other person even talk to someone like me? But Jesus' response to that, what he basically says to the woman, is why not? Why not? The very last line in the movie, "We Bought a Zoo," does not belong to Benjamin. It belongs to Catherine. As Benjamin recounts that day when he first met Catherine to Dylan and Rosie, after he tells them that he says to her, "Why would an amazing woman like you even talk to someone like me?" We then see Catherine, the image of Catherine sitting at that table, looking up and saying to Benjamin, "Why not? Why not? Why not indeed? Why not find those 20 seconds of insane courage for whatever it is that we need to be healed, to be transformed, to be made whole? Because God can do an awful, awful lot with those 20 seconds of insane courage. Maybe not full healing, full transformation, full wholeness, or at least not right away, but at the very least, those 20 seconds of insane courage with the power of God behind them can start the process moving. 20 seconds. 20 seconds of insane courage. Sounds like another pretty good rule to live by. Amen. I invite you to stand for our closing hymn, God of Grace and God of Glory.